Explosions rumbled and smoke rose this week from a steel-making district in besieged Mariupol, where dwindling Ukrainian forces are holed up as Russia tries to take full control of its biggest city yet. The Azovstal Iron and Steel Works, one of Europe's biggest metallurgical plants, has become an aptly apocalyptic redoubt for Ukrainian forces who were outgunned, outnumbered, and surrounded 7 weeks into Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In the east of the southern port, devastated by weeks of shelling, the plant lies in an industrial area that looks out to the Sea of Azov and covers more than 11 square kilometers, containing myriad buildings, blast furnaces, and rail tracks. The Azovstal factory is an enormous space with so many buildings that the Russians simply can't find the Ukrainian forces, said Oleh Zadnov, a military analyst based in Kiev. That's why they started talking about trying a chemical attack. That's the only way to smoke them out, Zadnov said. Ukraine has said it is checking unverified information that Russia may have used chemical weapons in Mariupol. Russia-backed separatists have denied using chemical weapons. In peacetime, the Azovstal Iron and Steel Works pumped out 4 million tons of steel a year, 3.5 million tons of hot metal, and 1.2 million tons of rolled steel. Investors rediscovered much of their appetite for riskier bets by Thursday afternoon, with the MSCI Global Index finishing well above its session low and the U.S. dollar pairing gains, while oil futures pulled back from multi-year records after Russia's invasion of Ukraine and responses from other countries. After falling sharply earlier in the day, U.S. Treasury yields paired most of their declines, and Russia's ruble recouped much of its losses against the dollar, while safe haven gold was in the red after earlier rising as much as 3.5%. While the S&P had steadily regained lost ground after hitting its session low after around the open, a noticeable improvement in risk appetite followed U.S. President Joe Biden's unveiling of new sanctions against Russia. He said the United States is working with oil producers to secure global energy supplies. While Biden insisted that U.S. forces will not fight in Ukraine, he said additional forces would be authorized to go to Germany. Sanctions cited involved Russian banks and technology imports, but did not involve oil and gas or the SWIFT international banking system. Investors, who are most concerned about inflation in areas such as energy, were relieved by what the sanctions did not include, according to Jack Janicewicz, a portfolio manager at Natixis Investment Managers Solutions. Historically speaking, whenever you get military incursions, the blueprint has been to sell in the run-up to the incursion, and once tanks start rolling in across borders, you're supposed to buy it, said Janicewicz. He noted that investors were buying assets such as technology stocks, which had been selling off ahead of the invasion. You're selling your winners to buy the losers right now. That's the rotation we're seeing, he said. Elon Musk, Twitter's newest biggest shareholder, could alter the course of the social media company as management battles a set of proxy proposals focused on topics from civil rights to politics at its upcoming annual meeting, shareholder activists and corporate governance experts said. Whatever the outcome of Musk's bid to buy Twitter outright announced Thursday, investors with opposing political views described the billionaire entrepreneur as likely to work to undo some of the restrictions on content that Twitter has imposed as it attempts to promote free speech while combating hate speech and false information. Even if he fails to buy Twitter, the Tesla CEO, who recently disclosed a 9.6% stake, is seen as likely to vote in ways that could shake up the company at its virtual May 25th meeting, said people who follow corporate governance issues. Given where Musk has positioned himself relative to the strategy of Twitter, and given he wants to be something of a disruptor, I don't see him voting on management very often, said Brian Bueno of Ferient Advisors, a corporate governance and executive pay consulting firm. Musk said his offer price of $54.20 per share was meant to promote open discourse. At the virtual meeting, he will control the second largest stake after Vanguard Group, enough to give either investor a kingmaker role in close contests. Musk did not immediately respond to requests for comment on how he might vote at Twitter. Musk's star power will likely draw much attention to the event, said Charles Elson, founding director of the Weinberg Center for Corporate Governance at the University of Delaware. He's a well-known individual in the middle of all this, so it will increase the interest in voting and could have a big impact, Elson said. Although Twitter on Friday adopted a shareholder rights plan to defend itself against Musk, Elson said its impact on the voting might only be to make proxy advisors, which tend to frown on so-called poison pills, more skeptical of management. Kentucky effectively suspended legal abortion access on Wednesday as the legislature enacted a sweeping anti-abortion law that took effect right away and forces providers to stop offering abortions until they can meet certain requirements. The impact of the law makes Kentucky the first U.S. state without legal abortion access since the 1973 Supreme Court case Roe v. Wade established the right to end a pregnancy before the fetus is viable, abortion providers say. Abortion rights advocacy groups have said they will challenge the bill in court. The law imposes requirements that the state's clinics say make it too logistically difficult and expensive to operate, including a provision requiring that fetal remains be cremated or interred. It calls for a combination birth, death, or stillbirth certificate to be issued for each abortion, and it bans abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, a Democrat, vetoed the bill on Friday, but the Republican majority House and Senate overrode his veto on Wednesday evening. In his veto letter, Beshear expressed concern that the bill did not include exceptions for abortions in cases of rape or incest, and said it was likely unconstitutional because the requirements it imposed on providers. Rape and incest are violent crimes. Victims of these crimes should have options, Beshear wrote. The legislature overrode several other of Beshear's vetoes on Wednesday, including a bill banning trans girls from playing girls' sports. San Francisco police were left scratching their heads after they pulled over a car earlier this month for driving without headlights at night and found no one inside. In what otherwise would have been a great April Fool's Day joke, San Francisco police officers pulled over a driverless car operated by General Motor Company's Cruise unit on April 1 and found no one behind the wheel. The resulting video footage has gone viral. The two officers, who were not identified, pulled the car over and were puzzled by the lack of humans inside, according to a video posted on Instagram that has been viewed almost 80,000 times. "Ain't nobody in it. This is crazy," said one of the officers who tried to open the vehicle door before walking back to his cruiser. The car subsequently drove through the intersection and stopped again in the next block as bystanders laughed. The video illustrated what Cruise Chief Executive Kyle Vogt previously said was one of the biggest challenges for autonomous vehicles: how to interact with humans. Cruise, which blamed human error for the lack of headlights, said it works closely with the police on how to interact with its vehicles and has a dedicated phone number for the police to call. Once the officer was clear of the vehicle, Cruise said the car relocated to the nearest safe location. Cruise is operating a small number of vehicles to give driverless rides to the public free of charge at night in San Francisco. The company is seeking the last regulatory approval required to launch commercial driverless service in the densely populated city. Ironically, Cruise CEO Vogt last month had said a scenario where a police officer pulls over a driverless car has to go smoothly. "We are kind of papering over all the weird stuff that can happen when there's no driver," he said at a Morgan Stanley conference. The San Francisco Police Department said the officers were able to make contact with the vehicle's remote operator and the maintenance team took control. Cruise was lucky in another respect. No citation was issued during the traffic stop, the police department said.